Dani, Aisha, thank you so much for sharing your time with us on the movie podcast today. We had such a wonderful time with your show.
Yes.
And it's just one of those things that when I started watching it and I messaged Shay, I'm like, Shay, like, let's watch the last episode together. So we just rewatched episode 3. And it's just so funny. And I think when you're doing a show that one takes place in Toronto and I think just hits on the mark of what culture is right now, I think it's really just hit all those notes for us. So before we get into the drop, I want to ask both of you, just how are you doing?
I feel good. I feel good.
Spring has sprung, kind of. It's not cold, but it's not warm. I'm just happy because the sun is out, So I'm great. To answer your question.
Yeah, there's some new life that's kind of brought in as soon as the sun is out. Like immediately, we were downtown this morning, and we just felt alive.
Yeah, people are happy.
So good.
Yeah, people are very happy.
Yeah. Thank God.
I want to ask both of you guys, with the drop, it's going to be 4 episodes. The last episode is coming out this week. What does it feel like for both of you to now have a show that you've written for, you've directed for, you've created, and you've starred in? What does it feel like to have it coming out into the world and having everyone able to now watch it in its entirety?
I mean, yeah. What does it feel like? It almost feels like it doesn't feel real, to be honest, because we've just been on this train for 3 years, and then I guess when it comes out, you're still just the same person. Is that a disappointing answer?
No.
Oh my
no
God.
Such thing.
Well, it is. I think it's interesting though, because it's like one of the things that it's 2 things. It's like I think there's like a level of vulnerability in the sense that you're like, I hope people think this is as funny as I think it is. That's my personal experience. But then on top of that, I do think it's kind of like, because we hold so many rules on the show, like it kind of hasn't stopped in a way. And so like we're continuing to like kind of push the numbers so that like people watch the show and like getting it out there as much as possible, because like the digital landscape is like tough. But yeah, I think that like it's like kind of when Dani says like it's kind of like nothing's changed, it in a way kind of does feel like that, because at the end of the day, even though I'm so happy, it's still like work. Like we're still working on this show in many ways, even though it's out in the world.
Yeah, there's definitely like a lot of hats that you're both wearing, and you're both so damn funny in this show. Like the comedic timing and delivery, phenomenal. There was just moments where Dan and I were watching and we're just like, this is literally how like you and I would just talk to each other. Like it really just cracked us up.
That's so great to hear. We really did want to make a show about like friends. Like in the end, like of course there's like the high concept of line waiting. But when it comes down to it, like the crew, that banter should feel like you and friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely does. And I gotta know, like, where did all of this kind of come from? Like, what was the inspiration even behind Dani making you an American character?
Yeah. How did that come about?
I remember we wanted to, it was a few summers ago, and we were trying to like figure Zara out.
Mm-hmm.
We were trying to figure her out because we had written like a pilot, but I don't think in this initial pilot, like Polly was like a supporting character. Zara was kind of like the lead and kind of like a clear lead. And then she was actually like in trouble with some loan sharks and had to make like a bunch of money. So started doing like Drops, which is like a completely different show. And then I don't remember how it happened. Do you?
I feel like I kind of do vaguely. This is wild. I'm like, wow, am I getting old because my memory is failing me? It was only 3 years ago. I think the biggest thing, like when we were developing this, like our comedy right now is like, it's very episodic, and like before it was serialized, and we kind of wanted to just create interesting characters and a setup that like, in a way like The Simpsons, like you watch an episode of The Simpsons and like you're beginning, middle, end, and like the world is kind of back to kind of somewhat normal by the end of the episode. And like and that's a similar thing in Broad City as well, which is one of our comps, where it's like the 2 leads do grow, but like there's like an event. Every episode is kind of like an event. And I think when we were kind of trying to figure out who Zara was, I think it kind of just came from like the idea of people like really scrounging to get by. And like I think that's when we started to talk about her as a character. All I remember is us being like, okay, well, who's scrounging to get by, and like what's a setup that could work over like a long period of time. That's just like a setup that doesn't have to, where you don't have to think too hard about it. But like, honestly, it was 3 years ago, so like maybe all of this is bullshit. I don't know.
I think that I remember us
good.
being like, they can't both be in the game. They can't both have the same arc. And like Zara,
Yeah.
I think we decided had to be like a have-not.
Mhm.
And Polly was just kind of more naturally like, not exactly like a have, but like has a bit more. And
Oh yeah.
we just like the idea of her being from away and like having to start a new life. And like all of those details about her character, I mean, it's not uncommon for people to need medicine that they can't afford and come to the Canadian border and like
laugh.
We shouldn't laugh. No, I shouldn't laugh.
Yeah.
Shouldn't laugh.
It's not funny. It's really not funny.
Yeah, I'm like, oh wait, I'm like, yeah, medicine. You can't afford it. That's hilarious. Surviving.
Yeah. No.
We're spoiled in Canada with this like universal, but even in Canada we don't get it, like unless you have a good drug plan. So okay, maybe we shouldn't laugh. Okay, I'm not laughing.
No, seriously.
It's like even in episode 2 when she talked about how she was born like at a field hospital.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who is this girl? We kind of wanted her character to have a real arc. And like, I think episode 3, like the series moves quickly because we only have 4 episodes. But in episode 3, we get to see Zara at her finest, or so she thinks.
I love that.
Oh yeah. Other thing to note, I think, about Zara's character was like, there's something to be said about. Did I lose it? Yeah, I lost it. Great interview, Aisha. You go.
If it comes back, you just stop me in my tracks and just tell me what
I'll
you're
put
thinking.
my hand up.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
But
Oh wow.
But I want to ask you both. Like, you got it. There's it's there. Take it away.
So it's like another thing, like not to bring up The Simpsons again, but there's this thing about Springfield, like we don't know what state Springfield is, and like in some ways I think we've laid the groundwork for Zara where like we actually don't know where she's from, and like we'll never know where she's from, which I think is also just kind of a thing that like we've planted. Like we know she's from America, I have no idea where she's from, as a thing that like as I think about the like maybe subsequent seasons of the show or what have you, it's just like something that can endure, and like it's kind of just like we know that no one knows where Zara's from, and it's just like a neat little thing about her character that doesn't really need much explanation, but that's there because it's funny.
Love that.
Yeah, I think what I love about that is that, you know, as Canadians, we tend to sometimes just generalize Americans as Americans. And I think you do such a great job of kind of like taking that populace, putting it into one person and being like, yeah, she could be from the South, she could be from the North, she could be from the Midwest. Doesn't matter. Like she's got every bit of American in her.
She's American.
She's
American.
Who knows what side she voted
Bless
for.
her soul.
Her opinions are just kind of everywhere. So I love that you were able to do that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Daniela, is Zara a Republican or a Democrat?
We'll never.
She's a red state. Oh my God.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
It's like Veep. You don't know what she's doing. Like in Veep, we're like, you're not sure. It's like, that's the vibe.
I love that.
She'll say questionable things, I think, every season. It's like, who did you vote for?
Yeah, like,
you know?
Yeah.
Where were you January 6th?
Where were you January 6th?
No, I want to ask both of you, how familiar were both of you with line culture before creating the show? Like where did that come into play, and how did you know much about that world?
I would say the research, like as soon as we thought of doing a show about it, the research kind of began from there. And we read a lot and we interviewed people, and we saw it happening around us because it was a pandemic, so there were a lot of lines. I remember stopping by and asking, like, is anyone here hired? It was like a line in front of, like, I don't know what it was, like a pharmacy or something. And everybody was kind of just like, oh, that lady's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but like not, because it's a real thing. And I also think that like, I think when it comes to both like Dani and I shared experience being folks that live in an expensive Toronto, like we've definitely like, I feel like line waiting is just a condensed version of like the hustle that is just like doing things for cash to get by. Like Dani and I have both held really weird jobs in order to like make money. And like there's something about that like even though we weren't working professionally as line waiters, even though I did work for somebody and like get them things because they were scared of getting COVID, and I did wait in line for like things like a respirator. No, she wanted a defibrillator, but doesn't matter. Anyway, all to say, like our shared experience of like just people being like, we've hustled to make money, like we kind of really understood the grind. And so line waiting seemed to be like an adequate fit to kind of encapsulate the experience that is just like working to get by.
That's so true. And I think when you look at Toronto loves lines. They loved lines before the pandemic, during the pandemic especially, and then now, like, it's so interesting, like, seeing where the world is now when these, like, massive items or whatever comes out. It's like the systems that are in place for them, like, be it raffle systems or just you're camping out for the week. Like, that's just embedded in the culture now. If you want that, you're getting in line for it.
And also, like, the line culture is actually sort of dead now, because we wanted to hit up like a line, like a sneaker drop, and every store, like, I can't name you one where they still do drops like that, because I guess it was like an issue, like people blocking sidewalks and stuff like that.
For sure.
And so, like, it's kind of like the subculture of it. It's not really like around right now. I don't know if that's going to change, but like, it bums me out. It's kind of like equivalent to like when all the DIY spaces in Toronto like had to be shut down. I was like, I like these quirky, interesting, weird subculture places in our city. Like, it's what makes Toronto cool. Like, culty is gone.
Yeah. It's be interesting to see Zara and Polly have to like figure out getting in line online in an episode one day in the future.
They're in a virtual queue.
Like, Polly can barely use her iPhone. No, Polly can barely use her iPhone. Like, the only thing she's good for is making TikToks. But I also think that, like, I do think that it has changed with, like, obviously the internet and all that jazz. But even so, like, there's when we were developing, it's like funny how certain things have changed and then how certain things haven't. So once upon a time when we were developing the series, we were talking to somebody and they were telling us about like how a donut place and a chicken place had done like a collab. So they were like fried chicken donut sandwiches, like somewhere in Parkdale, and people were waiting in line for them. And then like directly across the street, people were waiting in line for a food bag. And it was just kind of like the juxtaposition of people spending way too much money for like the dumb donut sandwich versus people waiting in line for like sustenance, for like just general, like for food. And like even now, like down the street from me, I live next to like a ritzy market that I should not go into because it's so expensive. And it's directly adjacent to a food bank. And so I was walking down this street like maybe last month, and there was this woman who looked like she had wealth, and there's this lineup of people on the sidewalk like kind of blocking the entrance to this like fancy market. And then she walks and she's like, "What are you guys waiting in line for?" And they're like, "Food bank." And she was like, "Oh."
You witnessed this entire interaction? I would die. I'd be like,
so
oh my goodness.
That is so cringe.
Only in Toronto, only in Toronto, or
only
LA, or New York, or Seoul,
exactly.
Or see, it just
exactly.
Like, this story I feel like could exist in many different cities.
Definitely.
Like we could have a drop for every major city. Around the world.
100%.
It's funny you bring up like the fact that that line culture has pretty much disappeared, because like Daniel and I, and like even our co-host Anthony, we used to work at a company, I won't say, and they were infamous for their lineups. People would be lining up, weeks on end just to get the latest new product that they were dropping. And then it just kind of like dwindled away. It just one day randomly, they were like, we have the internet.
Yeah.
Why don't we use that? And it has made, I think, life easier, but I don't know. I feel like the line waiting system online now has just gotten crazier. Like you're going against bots and also line waiters.
Yeah.
It's like I do think, but and then also like because we were thinking about like for like the next iteration, like should we continue? Netflix, if you're watching, you want to give us another season?
Hello.
Hi. Like Dani had floated the idea of like Polly, because Polly gets booted out of the community. Like she's now working as a ghost shopper. And is it a ghost shopper? What is it, Daniela?
Yeah, it's a role where you literally, like, your client is someone who is the exact same size as you, and then you go out and shop for them at the shops that they want to shop at, and you FaceTime them. So you're like, this is what the outfit would look like if it was on your body.
Wow. That's a thing.
Here's the fit,
wow.
Right? Here's your butt.
In my head, I was like, like a secret shopper? Like, but like, no, that's a ghost shopper.
No.
Different type of thing.
Exactly.
Wow. That's like an AI shopper.
And so like, yeah, exactly.
Wow. That's crazy. Like, what a world we're in.
I know. We should just quit this podcast and start doing that. I feel like there's money in this. Definitely.
I think
honestly, probably.
Stop the interview right now.
I think the drone note, if you want to say that, it's like an acting term, but the drone note, I would say, of the show is that time is the biggest commodity.
Oh yeah.
frankly, if you have wealth, you're getting people to do things for you.
Absolutely. And you know, we've gotten to know your characters so well, but no, when it comes to, you know, you Aisha and you Dani, how did you two meet? Like, where did all this kind of like this start from with you two?
York University.
Oh yeah.
York
we met at York. There's so many filmmakers
Yeah.
who met at York. Like you guys did a podcast with like Blackberry, and I'm pretty sure like Matt Johnson and
Jay Baruchel.
Well, I was gonna say his co-creator of Nirvana.
Jay McCarroll. Jay McCarroll.
Yes. Yeah, they're Yorkies. You know, people meet.
Yeah.
Our co-host is also a Yorkie.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Film as well.
Oh yeah. Exactly. So we met at York's Theater. We were in the acting conservatory, training to be actors. And we met at York. This was like, I won't say how long because I don't want people to start doing math. But it was a while
We're not good at math here, so it's okay.
We're not. It took us. We're trying to figure out an age just before the show. We're like, let's just look it up.
Figure it
out. But that's amazing.
We're 22.
No, I thought you were 19. So here we go. There we go.
That's fantastic. So you guys meet at York, and do you immediately like kick it off? Like is it something that you're immediately friends, or did you hate each other first? Like, did you have that true, you know, like rags to riches friendship? Like, how'd that look like?
Rags to riches friendship.
We
had rags to riches friendship. We were both poor, and then we're still poor.
Yes,
rags to rags.
I don't know. We weren't the best of, like, I guess Dani, like, we weren't the best of friends, were we? No, like,
no, but not in like a negative, not in a negative way. We were, but to be fair, I wasn't super like, my friends were all like undeclared. I won't call them weird because they're still my best friends. But like I didn't live in the artistic residence. I lived in the undeclared building. So I was just friends with different people until basically like third year. Then I was like, oh, theater people.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like I got kicked out of the program in my third year because I was depressed. But after we graduated, I feel like we still just kept in touch. And like Dani made another show called Shitty Roommate, which is hilarious. Don't only watch The Drop, go watch Shitty Roommate because it's so funny. And yeah, plugging everybody. Netflix, Paramount, HBO.
Anyone who's listening.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I feel like we had already always like stayed friends, but like you had a screening for that, and I had gone, and I was just gonna like show up and be like, this is gonna be great, I'm supporting, but like we were pissing our pants laughing. It was so weird and just like so different. And I think from there maybe kind of spawned our creative like interest in each other. And then when people were just like doing nothing in 2020, we were like, you want to make a show together? And then we did.
To explain Aisha's life, because you just explained.
Oh, right.
Like Aisha was also like, yes, I made a series. Aisha was making like incredibly beautiful, touching like short films that were like going through like the festival circuits. And I was like, oh, we both ended up being like multi-hyphenate people.
Yeah.
Like writer, director, actors. And I was like, you're here, I'm here. Let's go.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like the thing about like, yeah, we were both doing that, I guess, and like kind of separately. And it just like made sense because like, I think that, so I guess I'm a bit of a snob, I don't know, but I've always been kind of like, I want to make sure that people don't think I'm just an actor that wants to write and direct. Like I actually want their each respective crafts and I want to be good at all three of them. And like, I really do think that about Dani, which is why it was just like so nice to like work with somebody that like actually understands filmmaking, actually like understands like film language, if that makes sense. It's very like heady and like maybe a little bit like academic, but like that's the thing where I was really into it, and Dani already like she just has those skills, and so it just made sense because we were both kind of matched in our skill set, not only understanding performance but understanding filmmaking and writing and screenwriting.
But I think that makes sense, right? Because I think when you're seeing so many of the voices coming up now who are creating shows, who are like you're seeing them wearing all those hats, right? And I think that's what really I think breaks through all the noise when it comes to different shows and different movies out there, is that you are getting a defining voice of somebody who is not only starring in it, but they're writing it, they are directing, they're part of it. And you see so many shows like that, especially like, again, like you look at HBO, you look at all these other shows, like there are these clear voices that shine through. And I think both of your voices shine through on The Drop. And it is such a distinct, I think, just representation of like what Toronto looks like and what your guys' lives look like and what culture looks like right now. Right.
And your friendship shines through as well.
Yeah,
like you just like right now when you were both just talking about each other, it was so sweet because I'm like, man, they're not even talking about themselves.
Yeah, you're literally telling each other's story.
It's the opposite with Daniel and I. Like we talk the most shit about each other as we possibly can.
It's true.
No, just kidding. No, I'm just.
You guys thought this was a professional podcast?
No.
Fooled you. Yeah. No.
You guys are on edible.
We are a lot as well. Damn it.
Yeah.
Damn it.
That's our secret for every interview.
Yes. Every interview is high.
Yeah. But no, but it's funny though, like you mentioned like Matt Johnson and Jay McCarroll. It's funny, like we've been rewatching Nirvana, the band, the show, and it's just like that's another, like, I think where Matt and Jay have such a distinct personality and style of comedy, and that turns into, again, we're going to show Toronto because we're from Toronto, and I like that because we're so used to having a show or movies that will be shot in Toronto that masquerade as Toronto. It's never Toronto, so it's cool to see like, oh, I think it was at the end of your first or second episode, I'm like, oh, like you were at like Toronto Metropolitan University, you were outside the RCC, which was my building when I was there for broadcast and television. I'm like, damn, like that's where I would like take my breaks and everything, and it's cool seeing that. Right, it's really cool seeing that.
Yeah, we love Toronto.
I feel like, like this is our city, and like I think that once, like when we were developing it, I feel like, I don't know. I'm like, do you remember anyone telling us not to set it in Toronto? Was that ever a thing?
I mean, we wouldn't listen anyway, but
yeah, we wouldn't have listened. But like that's the thing. Toronto is like a world. It's kind of becoming like a world city. Like people just come here for the sake of coming here. Like you go to like London, New York, Paris, that kind of thing. And like I'm not saying that Toronto is like Paris adjacent. However, garbage collection is working here. But sorry,
barely,
too soon.
Barely, too soon. But yeah, I feel like that's like when it comes to Toronto, we were like we want to set it here because we live here, and it doesn't make any sense because it's like one of the most diverse nations, like, or one of the most diverse cities in North America. And then like B, we were really like interested in like showing on screen like the Toronto that like Dani and I live in, which is markedly different than like I don't live in Forest Hill. I live Forest Hill adjacent.
It is wild. It is wild to be like, there are some shows that are set in Toronto and everyone lives in a $3 million house. And you're like,
and it's just like,
what?
That's not real. That's not real.
That's the house you drive by.
Like literally before.
That's the house that like, like I squat in front of. Like, yeah.
Exactly. Like I literally right before Dani and I got on this call, I was talking to her and I was like, I gotta go because the squirrels are like the rodents and like in my back porch, like they no longer are scared of me. Like they kind of just do whatever they want. And like actually, and like I was like when I was talking to Dani, I was like, I'm so sorry. I think the squirrels are mating on my patio, and I had to get my broom and like get up. Like that's the thing.
It's not the language you used exactly, but
it's a kid's show. It's a kid's show.
You said something way more explicit, and I was like, wow. Yeah, the animals like around us, like the raccoons. Like I have to like invite them to my wedding.
They're
like,
there.
They think that they're equivalent to like us humans here. Like they're not afraid of you.
Yeah, exactly. And like people that live in $3 million houses, I kind of like to believe that they don't have to deal with like raccoons mating in their garbage can or like having to shoo them away so you can put your recycling in your bin. Because like literally, we've actually named him. His name is Rocco, and he's like really sweet, but like he's literally just always around. And like I
it's good vibes there. That's why,
which is messed up.
But back to the show. But back to the show.
Yes, sorry, yes. But you know,
enough about Rocco.
Well, that could be a character, I think, the next season. I think that's something that is up for debate, obviously. But I mean, there's I love that you guys talking about Toronto, that we love the city so much, and there's so much amazing talent coming out of the city, like you two especially.
Yeah.
That's already evident right here that you guys are from Toronto. You're amazing, and also you have amazing Toronto talent in this show. Like you have Mark Little in this show, and he's so fun. We had him on our show. What an absolute blast that guy is.
He's so great. We're so happy about all the cast members. Everyone fit the roles so perfectly. I just feel like for me, it's like like being in comedy, the point is to work with other comedians. Like, I don't want to make a comedy that's like a two-hander for a whole season. I would die. I want other comedians to show their talent, to grace the screen, to have the opportunity to work with them.
Yeah. And I feel like we kind of, I like the idea of saying like we got lucky, and like in many ways we did, because like people are busy, they're working, they have to be available to like shoot with us, right? But in some ways, like kind of just stemming up of what Dani just said, it's kind of like Canada is known for comedy, and we also were just able to leverage our network of like really funny people. And I think that like obviously it's a strength to the show, but I'm also kind of just like proud that we were able to do that, because I don't know, it's like especially for a digital series, like I think it kind of says a lot about the nature of the comedy and the nature of the show that we were able to get so many lovely human beings to make cameos, that kind of thing, when like we had a fourth of like the average like TV budget to do so.
Yeah, and if you ever need, two podcasters to appear in an episode, you got us right here. We'll happily drop by. We're always in Toronto.
Yeah. Awesome. I thought you lived in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, it's
on the streets.
It's all Toronto.
Oh, okay.
We can't give you our address.
Yeah, just around.
Just around.
Yeah.
We're around.
Toronto
adjacent. We're in Forest Hills. We'll be honest. We're in Forest Hills.
We didn't want to let you know.
When you said raccoon, I had no idea what you were talking about.
We don't have those abominations here.
I've never even seen a raccoon. Is it Guardians of the Galaxy? That's the raccoon I've seen.
Yeah.
You guys. So this is a show that's on Narcity's YouTube. How did that come to be? Why were they the best partners to work on the show with you?
Narcity's been so great, and we realized that their audience is our audience in terms of like target demographic. It's young people on their phones looking for the news who are Toronto people, and they've just been so lovely to work with. Yeah. Shout out to Max and Jackie at Narcity.
We love you.
We love you.
We really do. They've been so gracious with us. But I think that like it just kind of like made sense. And like when I think about like alignment, like Dani sent the email to somebody that she knew that worked there, and then they kind of reviewed they reviewed our deck and they're like, yeah, this is sick. And like it wasn't like multiple pitch meetings, like having to sway them or what have you. It like really just made sense, because when we developed the series, we kind of had analytics for like, we kind of knew who our target demographic was, and we had like data to be like, this is who, like these are the people. And it was literally just like alignment. And so it was like, I think the biggest thing is audience, urban dwellers, like millennial Gen Z folks. And like, yeah, it was just, the only word I can think of is just like really aligned. And it just kind of made sense, if that makes sense. Like in the nature of our comedy. Yeah, it just made sense.
Now, I really hope that we get to see your characters return. I know if you can't talk about it, that's fine. Do you guys know if we're coming back for a second season yet? Is that in talks right now? Is that in the works? It's a secret.
It's a secret.
I know the creation never stops with you two, though. Like you guys must be writing and just getting projects on the go all the time, right?
Yeah,
I've been writing under.
That's what she was doing. That was my last question before we wrapped. I was like, what is she? What are you up to?
It was an old quill that she was using as well. Very strange.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think like it's tough because like so we kind of can't talk about it, but also like creatives are going to create. So like Dani's working on another series, and I'm like shooting a feature next summer, and I'm writing that. But like if the stars align and it makes sense, like 100%, because it was just so fun. Like that's the thing. It was a lot of like trying to figure out a digital space when I'm not feeling like we're not influencers, we're filmmakers. So it was a lot of figuring out a digital space, but it was also just like a lot of fun. So I'd be happy to have 3 to 5 other seasons, more seasons.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. You both are incredible. We are so grateful for you sharing your time with us today. And yeah, thank you for sharing your time with us on the Movie Podcast.
Yeah,
hopefully we get to talk to you guys again
Thanks
for your future projects as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'd be lovely.
Aw. Yeah, thank you.